This is the life story of Theodore Klein, video number 7. So last we were talking about Jackie, and why don't you go back to the beginning of the marriage and talk about what married life was like to you?
Married life was very nice. We the first year was always the nicest because we were not under too much pressure. We didn't have any children of our own yet, so we were free more or less to do anything. Jacqueline was a young woman, a young girl. She was on her own. She was in junior high school already, and so we didn't have to worry about babysitting or anything, and we had our nights together, and we now went out whenever we wanted to, and then my wife had a miscarriage, and so once that straightened out, then about 9 months later, we had our daughter Carol was born, and interesting. She was a very pretty little girl. The problem with her was she was a very poor eater, and she was a little bit premature. So she had so she couldn't eat. She didn't eat too much, and she would eat 1 ounce of a formula, and then she'd fall asleep, and then wake up an hour or so later. So the nights were very difficult because we were always up all night, here and there, feeding her and stopping her from crying. So it was very tiring. It was very tiring. We both had to go to work the next day. So I tried to help as much as I can to make it easier for my wife. It was very pleasant. We enjoyed the baby.
But now Carol was born with a problem.
Yes, right. Carol was born with a. We noticed that her left hip, one leg was off than the other leg. It just didn't sit right, and so my wife took Carol to the doctor, the baby doctor, pediatrician, and he says that there's nothing wrong with the baby. But then, and he thought that he was a smart. He thought he knew everything. This guy, and my wife got very upset. So I thought, well, change doctors. Let's try another doctor. So she took her over to this other Dr. Levine, and Dr. Levine was basically an allergist and a pediatrician. And she took and Louise didn't say anything to him. She took the baby in. He looked at the baby, and he goes, "Oh, foot doesn't seem to be right." So he says that the foot is the hip is out of place. Something is out of place. So they sent the kid for X-rays. I think my wife could explain it better. Anyhow, the end result was that they checked her out and they put her in something called a Fraker pillow. A Fraker pillow looks like a little parachute that they put between the 2 thighs of the leg with a strap around, and this keeps the legs apart they try to put it out to a 90-degree angle. The problem was that the hip bone, the femur bone had to go into the hip bone, into a socket. And what happened was that the bone from the hip was straight up. So there was no pocket for the bone to go into. So the femur bone would go straight up. And later on in life would have been a big problem for the baby, because she would have to be limping, because there was no socket to hold the bone in place. So anyhow, they put her in like that for 18 months or so, whatever. And the baby managed. She was growing, and she walked around with it in that 90-degree way. She walked around with it.
Was this a cast?
No, this was not just a pillow. It was like a parachute between the legs, strapped in between. We'd strap her in, and it was like that to keep it in place like this. So she would crawl around with it, okay? But what happened is that the time period, she started to grow. And next thing you know, she outgrew the pillow. This Freke pillow. Freke is named for a Danish doctor who discovered this. Remember, she took the baby back to Dr. Levine, and he then ordered her to go to another specialist, a doctor, and they realized that she's not improving. They took X-rays. There was no improvement. The bone didn't come down, or if it did, it came down just a little bit. So they decided that this only alternative is to put her into a cast. Now the cast came from under the shoulder, around her breast, all the way down, just leaving room for the urination and for the feces part open, and went all the way down to the leg, and they put her in this position, 90 degrees position, estraled. So she was stiff. And she was like this for like 18 months. She did this, and boy, she became so good at this. She walked around. It was very hard because she walked in a, if we could,
She was in. How long was she in the pillow and then the cast?
I don't know if the pillow. The pillow was 12 months, whatever. But then it wasn't big enough for her to help her. So they put her into this cast. Now, this cast was a very difficult. I don't know how she managed, but she walked around with that, and she went to the cocktail table, piled it on, and she got up, and she stood around and she walked around with it. Maybe it strengthened her legs, because she was.
At some point, she was probably able to talk even.
Yeah, but by this time she already. This is going into 1.5, 2 years. And what happened was, in the interim, my wife was pregnant again with our son Arthur. But it got to the point where she couldn't pick up Carol, because Carol was too heavy with the cast. So I had to get somebody to watch the baby, because my wife couldn't pick her up. It was too much.
She wasn't working at this point. You were working on it.
I was working. Yeah, so Arthur was, she had to take her into the hospital to give birth to Arthur, but what were we going to do with the baby? Well, this was a problem. So I took the baby to Carol. I took the baby to...
Grandma.
No. I took the baby to my sister Eileen, to Newark, New Jersey, where they lived. I think it was in Newark, or by then maybe they moved to Bradley Beach, Bradley, New Jersey. One of the places, and she stood there, and my sister had two little girls, Phyllis Feigler, and Phyllis was at this time, it must have been like 9, 10, I assume, and her sister Rhoda was about 4 or 5. So and she took care of my. It was very nice to my daughter, my sister, took care of her and everything. Anyhow, we had Arthur was born, and we brought him home from the hospital. Now you have to understand something. Every time the children were born, my wife had to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks because she had the RH factor, it's called. Her blood type is opposite to our children's blood type, which means that her blood type would attack the children's blood and would have killed the baby, because it was like a foreign substance in the body. So it was like an antibody. It was an attack because it was threatening the mother. So so they had to take each baby earlier than they would have normally. So all our children were born premature because when they watched the blood towards the end, and as soon as it got to the critical stage where my wife's blood was close to the baby's blood, where was in danger, they had to take the baby because otherwise it would attack the baby's blood and attack the baby. So they wanted to keep this out of the children's system. That's what what it was. So she had the baby. So she stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks. Came home with the baby, and then I had to get a woman because I got Carol home for my sister, and she was crying, Carol, because my sister became her mother, and Mama Louise got a little upset because she didn't recognize her.
But this was only 3 weeks, maybe, right?
Yeah, but she got so used to my sister. It was nice to her. And they all, what do you call it?
They were paying attention to it.
Yeah, the 2 old girls and everything, and so she so she was a little bit attached. She got attached to them. So when we brought her home, so she kept calling my sister Mama. But all right, so she got home. Everything was good. The problem was, so then we have, and Arthur was a good eater in a sense. Oh, he would eat so good. But as soon as he finished eating, he brought it up, he would throw up. He would throw across the room up all the time, he would throw up. And we had a woman to watch her, and she used to say to Arthur, she says, Arthur, you could stay, but that there noise has to go. So so anyhow, this went on and got to the point with Carol with the cast, where now it was dangerous in the sense that, it started to rot away, the cast. Was on her for like 18 months or something. The cast started to, with the urine getting on it and everything. It just, so they had to they cut it off, and then they took an x-ray and checked it, and sure enough, the bone on the hip came down, was good enough, and the other one was able to go into a socket. I don't know if it's perfect, but it was down enough to cause the bone to be in there. So thank God that it took a while, but it worked. They figured it out, and it worked. So then
but that must have been a very difficult time period with her in the cast.
Oh, yeah. But she was so good. She never crutched, never cried. She got so used to the cast. She walked around with the cast, and she was a happy little girl. And she crawled around on the floor with it and pulled herself up to the wherever. Never complained. It was her life. She didn't know any better.
Right.
And it was amazing how you can adjust. And And then we went along like this. The two of them played all the time together, and she used to climb into Arthur's crib, and her big game was that she would take his pacifier, pull it out of his mouth, and put it in her mouth, and he'd cry. So then came, and we were blessed. We had our youngest baby was
Well,
born.
what was Arthur like as a baby?
Oh, Arthur was a good baby. He was very good. And Cal was very protective of him. When they were able to, we got older and they went out, my son David was still an infant, but they would go downstairs. We lived in the project, and they would play outside in front of the window with other kids. And whenever one kid would pick on Arthur, because he was small, so my Cal would run over, put his arms around Arthur, and she threatened the other kid, leave him alone. So she was very protective of him. One incident with him was interesting. One night I came home from work, and I'm walking on the walk towards our building, and he's like 18 months old, and we had a big school fence, a big one, high up. And I'm walking in, and all of a sudden I hear, Dad, Dad. And who's on top of the fence? My son Arthur, holding on with one hand. I got my valise, and I thought I'd try. I said, what are you doing? And he's holding on with one hand, and he's got his foot up there, and he's up on the top of the fence. So I went over, I said, come down slowly. I got him down. I was so glad I got him down. But who knows, he could have done this every day.
Yeah.
I'm not there, you know. So it was amazing. He was such a good climber. Of course, we lived in a project, and we had a high riser, which was a pipe going from the floor. It got through the whole building to the top. And on top of the high riser, on the ceiling, if you look, you see all the hand marks up there. He would shimmy right up. He shimmied up and he would touch it.
You were living at this point at Williamsbridge Road.
Right. 2425 Williamsbridge Road. That was our building. The reason I remember that so distinctly is because two of our children were brought home to the hospital while we lived there. My son Arthur and my son David. We all went to that apartment.
Where was Carol?
Carol was born. I took my wife into the hospital on the left when we were moving out. We're moving out of 1455 Sheridan Avenue.
That was her old apartment.
Yes, we were moving out, and we were moving to, I forgot the name of the street, a couple of blocks away. It was the same building that my wife's aunt, Sue, lived in, and we were moving there. And the day we were moving, she had to go in. They called her from the hospital. The doctor called. He says, "You better get right into the hospital. The titer is too high, and it's threatening the baby." They took the blood. They took every week a blood test. So I just packed her up, and then I took her in, and I came back and I packed the rest of the house up. Next day we moved, and she had the baby the next day.
How did you choose to name her?
Carol? Carol was named after my grandmother, my father's mother. Chai Esther was my grandmother from my father's mother was Chai Esther. Okay, so she was named after him. Arthur was named, well, I lost my dad when I was 16, so Arthur was named after my father, Yehuda Aryeh, and we didn't know we were going to have any more, in our 30s, we didn't have any more children. So I wanted, my wife wanted her father named. So we called him Yehuda Aryeh, my father, and her father's name is Yosef. Yehuda Aryeh, Yosef Yehuda Aryeh, Ben Menachem Avram. It's my name. Okay, but then we were blessed with another baby.
But what was mommy's Hebrew name?
My Hebrew name is Liba Miriam Bas Yosef. Yosef is her father. Liba Miriam. That's a good question. I forgot. I knew it, and I forgot who she's named after. Miriam. What? Who? It could have been her grandmother, for all I know, or great grandmother.
What about the English names, Carol and Arthur?
Oh, Carol
Did
and
you
Arthur.
have any trouble agreeing on them?
No, we never had an argument with names. No, we like Carol. Esther. Well, we had Esther because there was Chai Esther.
Hi, Esther.
Was that a problem? Arthur, we called him Yosef. We call him Yosef today. Arthur Yosef. Arthur is sort of a REA, for my father, and Yosef is your father. So that's not a problem.
How does that equate to Arthur?
The what?
How does that turn into an Arthur?
No, we like the name
Oh,
Arthur.
you like the name Arthur? Okay.
You like the name Arthur?
Yeah.
Just like David. We have a David in the family. Well, I got to you, so then we'll discuss that part. So,
And Carol was born September 1st, 1963.
And Arthur was born on
Arthur was born November 27, 1965.
1960.
No,
64.
1964.
And Arthur was born. We had our turkey. We had our turkey dinner on Thursday, and the next day I took her in, and she had Arthur because everything was done by because it was cesarean, so it was all very scheduled. Now, what happened is that then in my wife got pregnant again, and then in 2 years later, our son David was born. Now, November 1st, 1966. He was born 1966. So what happened is that he was named after my grandfather and my wife's grandfather. My grandfather's name was Moshe ben Nachum Harsh, and my mother's grandfather was Nissan. I met Nissan. He was still alive when we got married. But
Who
died.
is he? Who?
Nissan is my wife's grandfather.
Okay.
My wife's grandfather, Nissan. I happened to meet him. How did I happen to meet him? I was going with your mother, and they were having a party in someone's house. I forget. When you talk to her, she'll know when this party was, and so she asked me to take up to the party. So I went to the party, and her grandfather was at the party. So that was and I never saw him after that, because he died within a short time afterwards. He was no youngster. He was much older than her grandmother.
Right.
So he passed away, and so your name was David Moshe Nissan. Now, why did we pick David? We liked the name David. We wanted to call you David. We liked the name, but we had a David. My grandfather's brother was David. My grandfather's, my father's father. This was my father's uncle.
On his father's side.
On my father.
On your father, but it was his father's side. How was it?
Yes, on his father's side.
So his father's
This
brother.
was his father's brother. David Bachi. His son was a soccer player, professional soccer
Oh,
player.
you mentioned him.
Yeah, that was his name was Udi Klein, and the father's name was David Klein.
And Carol was born, has the same birth date as Louise.
As Mama. Yeah, as Louise. Same by the 9/1/29, 9/1/63. It was
So,
just a coincidence. Came out just like that, you know, and so.
were these pregnancies difficult?
No problem. The pregnancy. We got pregnant right away. I was pretty good. I say so.
Well, that's not what I mean. I wasn't referring to the conception. I was referring to the pregnancy itself.
No, she had no problem with the pregnancies. Didn't really have I don't remember her complaining too much with pregnancies. She had fairly decent pregnancies. Jackie was born normally. But what happens is that at that point, she was young enough where she was able to go long term enough before the antigens attacked the baby. I don't know what had happened if she had to take her. I don't know if they at that time if they knew what to do. Because we talk about an extra 10, 15 years later.
Right.
But but after that, as soon as the Carol was conceived, now the antigens already was a foreign substance. So then they had a watch. They knew already they had a watch. So all 3 pregnancies they had a watch. So each pregnancy they had to take her, and she had to stay 2 weeks in the hospital till she healed. What's interesting when David was born is that morning, we had to take him into the hospital like 12, 1 o'clock to two boys were born in Mount Eden.
No, Bronx, Lebanon.
Bronx, Lebanon. Bronx, Lebanon Hospital on Mount Eden Avenue. Right, Bronx, Lebanon. Carol was born in the Bronx Hospital, which was another section in the Bronx. She was born there. What happened was that morning, three of my co-workers.
That morning was when I was born.
That morning you were born. So that morning, 2 of the co-workers I worked with, 2 black fellows and a Jewish boy, Izzy Heller, and the 2 brothers, Irish brothers, okay? One was a cop, and one was his brother who worked with us. So the 4 of us, they came down on a Sunday, and they were playing handball. Not handball, we're playing with paddleball, just handball, but with a paddle. So we're playing this big game all day, you know. Now I'm in my 30s. I was at that point 35, 36, maybe 37 when you were born. Anyhow, we're playing paddle, and I finished the game, and I ran upstairs, and I took a shower. We played like 2, 3 games, and I took a shower, and then your mother packed up her stuff, and I took her in the car, and I couldn't walk. I was so stiff. All the muscles were aching me. She had to pick and carry the bag. I remember getting to the hospital, and I got out of the car. The muscles were hurting me. So that was the fun part. And then she went up, and I left her there. And
So when she's giving birth, you just walk around the hall.
no, I don't know if he did it at that point. What date were you born?
1966.
60, but what was it?
November 1st.
What date was that?
What day of the
Monday,
week?
Tuesday, Wednesday?
I don't remember.
Because I took her into the hospital on a Sunday. See, Arthur, I took him the day after Thanksgiving.
So that would have been a Friday.
That was on Friday. So she had the baby Friday. Carol, you see, Carol, I took in earlier, and they tried to induce labor. and I couldn't induce labor. So finally, the doctor, I think on a Sunday, gave up, and they decided to do cesarean. I don't know what day that was, because I know I took in on a Sunday. We were playing ball that day, so I don't know if you're born Sunday or Monday. Depends on what the doctor's schedule was.
I can look it up.
Yeah, if you're going on Monday.
Do you remember what the weather was like on these days?
Yeah, it was beautiful.
All 3 days?
But that was November. November 1st. It was fall. It was a fall day. But we were playing our ball.
What about Arthur? Do you remember the weather?
Arthur was already later, when it was already now after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was the 26th. He was born the 27th. So it's a month later than you were born, and the weather had to be
a little colder. And Carol?
Carol was the summer yet.
Beautiful day.
September
Nice
1st, yeah. But something was very nice. I was born was big winter. They had like 5 feet of snow on the ground when I was born. I was lucky that my mother didn't have any problems, because they couldn't help. I was born with a midwife. All the children were born with a midwife. There was no doctors, you can get to a hospital. They had a midwife, and if you lucked out, you lived. If you like, you in big service.
Yeah.
Right? That's why there was so many people, so many children died in these things. Even mothers died, because if they couldn't, if they ran into, for example, a bleeding situation or something, how do you stop it? What the hell do you do? So
what was David like as a baby?
Oh, David was a beautiful baby. Oh, he was gorgeous. Beautiful blonde hair. Oh, really, he was really beautiful baby. And he used to sit there in the crib and he used to watch his brother and sister, and they would run around and he observed everything. That's how he got so smart. He knew everything. By the time he got out of the crib, he already knew how to do things, because he saw them how they did it and what they had to do. And the biggest thrill I had, I remember, was, it was just a coincidence. It was a weekend, and we were in Putnam Lake. Now, Arthur was born in November 26th, 27th, right? Now, we were in Putnam Lake. It was maybe July, maybe June. So how many months would that be? 6, 7 months?
July, yeah, June or July would be, 6, 7, 8 months.
So I don't think he was walking yet. He wasn't, he was a baby. So it was Shabbos afternoon, and he was in the crib in our room, and I was sitting on the edge of the bed, and the baby was laying in the crib. He was laying in the crib, and I'm sitting there watching, and all of a sudden, I see this kid. He takes one leg, he puts it over the other leg, and goes, woo, and he flipped right over. I couldn't believe this. I hollered out to your mother. I said, Louise, come. The baby just turned over. First time I saw him turn over, And soon after that, once he turned over, he can push himself up and pull up, and he can stand up. But it was such an amazing thing. Now, I wasn't around when you were turned over. Because it happens very quickly. As soon as you're able to boom, you turn right over. I guess you did it the same way. I guess I did it the same way.
I don't know. I don't remember that.
Somehow you managed to figure it out, And so we had some beautiful incidents with you. With David, we had some interesting incidents with him. What happened with David is that now he's already we're in Putnam Lake. It's summertime, right? So he's already crawling around. He's crawling around. He's a baby, but by now it's almost a year old, and he's on the floor crawling around. It was Friday night, and all of a sudden his mother picks him up and is putting him into bed, washes him up, he takes the bottle, puts it in his mouth, and the baby starts to cry. And the baby starts to cry, and he spits it out, and he's crying, and he's crying. And she don't know what the heck to do with him. I don't know what to do with him. This is going on all day Sunday. What happened was, for Shabbos, I bought up some pistachio nuts. I don't know if David knows about that. You know, we put some pistachio nuts. We were eating pistachio nuts. Somehow, half of a pistachio nut, the outside, fell on the floor, unbeknownst to us. And the baby's crawling around, and he found it. Not knowing what he did, he took it, and what does a baby do? Why would they find it? Put it into the mouth. Anyhow, at that point, we're not aware of anything. She's trying to feed him, he won't eat. Every time she puts the thing and she sucks on the bottle, he got pain. He can't eat. Sunday goes, finally, I had to go back to work. So I left Sunday afternoon, come back to New York, and she can't take it anymore. So I left the car for her, I think I did, and she took the baby into Danbury Hospital. And they took the baby in emergency, and the guy looks in her mouth, he goes to, oh, he's got a growth in there, a big growth. He says, you better get him, he's got to get a surgery. You got to cut that out. You got to go. So I get a phone call. He says, I want you to call Dr. Levine first thing in the morning. He's got to set up a surgery for David. He's got a big growth in his mouth. He's got a growth in his mouth. For what? So anyhow, first thing in the morning, early, I call up the doctor's office. So I get the doctor on the phone, and I says to him, there's a big growth in my youngest son's mouth, and the doctor in Danbury says needs a surgery. I would like to, if he can see you, make an appointment. He goes, I'm not going to set up a surgery. I got to see the baby. I'm not just going to set up a surgery. You don't know what's going on. In the interim, what happened was, she calls up Shirley Corman. Now, Sam also left for New York.
Tell who Shirley Corman is in the relationship.
Shirley Corman is one of our neighbors in Putnam Lake, where they have a summer home, and we have a summer home. From family, and so we know each other from the shul there and everything. We're very nice people. And and I became very friendly with her husband, Sam. Sam was a head oncologist, which is a cancer specialist in one of the Brooklyn hospitals. He was the head of the oncology department. So anyhow, my wife spoke to his wife, and his wife says, look, Sam left, but tomorrow I'm having one of his friends, co-workers, one of the friends, doctors, coming with his wife to spend the day here with me. He says, do you mind if he looks at the baby? This guy happens to be a pediatrician. So the next day, the couple arrives, and sure enough, I called up Mama, called up Louise. I says, the doctor won't make an appointment. He wants to see the baby. He's not setting up no surgery. So I said, I guess I have to come back and bring the baby back home. No choice. So meanwhile, Shirley Coleman calls her back, Louise, and says to me, he says, I have my friend here, Dr. So-and-so. He says, would you be upset if he saw the baby? So Louise says, no, I'll be so happy. So he came over to the house. She brought him over to our house, and he took the baby, took David, and he put him on his lap. And meanwhile, in the Danbury hospital, Mama was telling me that, this doctor was looking in his mouth with these magnifying glasses and checking it out. His guy looked at his mouth, and he opened the baby, turned the baby's head over, and he says to Louise, your mother, he says, give me a teaspoon. So she gives him a teaspoon, and he goes, and freaks out. He freaked out a half a pistachio nut that got stuck on the gum. It got sucked into the gum. It was stuck, and every time you put the bottle in, that thing hurt your mouth because it was rusting right. He freaked it right out. He said, okay, his food, everything is good. That was there was one incident with you. Another big incident was with David was when he was riding his bike or something down the hill, and I don't know, I came up for the weekend or something, and then I heard that he fell on a stone and he broke his arm and had to take him into the hospital. I came up, he's in a cast. And he just started, the summer just started. It was like the first week in July. I said, my whole summer he shut. You know, I wanted the kid to go swimming and do all kinds of stuff, and his arm was in a cast. So I don't know exactly. He knows exactly how he broke it.
The story is more complicated than that.
Hell.
Stay where you.
Hi, Mama. Where's the wagon? Okay, so I don't know the rest of the story, how it went exactly, but he'll pull me in and I'll be able to tell.
Okay, so let's actually jump backwards a little bit. And so what was your relationship with Grandma? Which is
I got along very well with Grandma.
So that's Jean Gaskin.
Yeah, she was my grandma, and I got along very well. We used to ride up to the country every Friday. I would pick her up in the West Bronx where she lived, and I would ride up, took her over there, and I would bring her because she was still working.
The house was where?
Which house?
The summer house.
It was in Putnam Lake. It's called Putnam Lake. It's just outside of Brewster, a few miles above Brewster, New York. And so I used to take up my wife's mother and sometimes even her grandmother. So I used to go up there, and then I used to bring, Sunday used to come home, and I would drop them off, drop her off primarily, my mother-in-law, and at that point I went home, so this went on every weekend until we had vacation. When we had vacation, so we then would spend the vacation up there for a week or two. But you guys at that point were kind of little, so we didn't go anywhere per se. You know, we might have gone to a place in Connecticut where they had a little baby, rides or whatever.
Your relationship with Jean Gaskin was good?
Oh yeah, we always got along very well,
What was she like?
To me, she was very nice. She was always very nice to me. Never really. We never had words about anything, I don't remember. The biggest, funniest incident happened was that one time we were leaving, you were like 2 years old, and we were leaving on a Sunday. The whole family was packing up, and we were leaving to come home for the summer, for the winter, for school was going to start. And we're waiting, and you went into the car. How you got into it, I don't know.
How old was I, do you think?
Maybe 2. Maybe that. And now you got into the car and you did, but not the driver's side, the passenger side front, that saved, was a big lifesaver, was open, the door was wide open. And if you remember, we had a hedge over there. And it was on a hill. and all of a sudden the car started to roll. You somehow, I don't know how you did it, but somehow you put the car in reverse, or you took the emergency brake off. You did something that was enough to get the car moving, and the car is moving back. Now I'm on top. We have like a hill to the car, if you remember. So I dodged, and who's behind the car? Your sister. And she's trying to hold the car back. I was trying to hold the car back. Oh my God, the kid is something. You know, it's really an amazing thing. And he's trying to hold the car back, and the car is rolling, and I jump in the car, and my mother-in-law, your grandmother, is standing up on top, and on top of the door, and she looks, and yo, Mama, and she was like in such startled that her false teeth fell out. You know, and then your mother was running from the back of the house. I don't know what happened. Her foot, I don't know, she cut her foot, I don't know, was crazy, but the hedge held the car, the door, but it broke the car door. So I got into the car, and I stopped the car, and then I tied up the door, you know, and so, but that was a crazy thing, what happened over there. And we had good times with the kids in the summertime. We used to play soccer in the back of the yard. We used to pitch ball, and we hit those little what do you call it, balls, plastic balls.
A wiffle ball.
Wiffle ball. We used to do all that kind of stuff. We had a good time. It was nice. It was very pleasant.
Carol was the real ringer.
Yeah, Carol, she was a strong kid.
Hello. Yeah. So, did you like going up to Putnam Lake?
Oh yeah, I liked Putnam Lake.
What in particular did you like about it?
The what?
What in particular did you like about Putnam Lake?
Well, it was very relaxing. It was, we had a social life. That's okay, I don't want to tag him also.
You just put that on the videotape.
It's okay. So, I didn't want to, so it was very nice. We swam, then the kids were growing up, and then we had the races, and there were all kinds of, and David one time was fighting and won on the watermelon contest. They took a watermelon, put butter on all over it, and then they threw it into the water, and the kids, whichever kid came up with it, got it. And these kids were fighting for the watermelon, and every time one got it, it slipped out of his hand, and the other kid, it was a lot of fun. It was good. Good time. We had a good time with it, and it was all very pleasant time because we were all young and the kids were young. It wasn't good. It was good. It was a good time. We were active in the Jewish Center. Our shul, what we were active in.
So what did some of the kids were on a swim team, right?
Oh yeah. Well, they're too old. Carol and Arthur were on the swim team. They were too older than David. They would have been on the swim team also. But he wasn't old enough yet to compete at that point. So it makes it different because in these competitions you had kids that were a little older, and like let's say Cal was small, so if she was 12, she can compete up to 14. But 14-year-olds are much stronger than a 12-year-old kid, or a 10-year-old kid to a 12-year-old kid. You know, it's not the same. So, relatively speaking, our children won all kinds of medals up there because they were good swimmers. They were all good swimmers, and as well, they all learned how to swim up there, if I remember correctly. They all took lessons up there or whatever, and they learned how to swim. They were all good swimmers. They all became lifeguards eventually, or they all qualified to be lifeguards. Oh, not only that, but Arthur later on, when he was already high in the teens or the 20s, he took up scuba diving, and he had all the equipment, and he could deep dive. He had all that equipment. He was very good at that. And so.
And Mommy was a lifeguard too, right?
Yeah. My wife Louise was a very good, very powerful swimmer. She would take one of the kids and put him on the back of her shoulder, and she would swim across the lake. This is a big lake.
I remember doing it with her.
Yeah, she was strong, and the kid would hold on to her neck, and she just swam across nonchalantly, and she wasn't afraid. She was a very powerful swimmer. She grew up on that lake as a kid, and she spent all her life on the lake. So she was like a mermaid in the lake, strong, and so all the kids were like that, and she encouraged all the kids, and they all took lessons. And then we had teams, and we swam against our lake, swam against other lakes in Connecticut, New York. They competed in different things, and they did very well in these competitions. And my son, Arthur, and my daughter Carol, they won the swim teams. They were one of the top swimmers on the swim team. And I remember they used to have mother-daughter races. And what interesting about the mother-daughter races was that my wife could outswim all the other mothers there, which was primarily non-Jewish women. She could outswim all of them. But Carol was her partner, was a mother-daughter race. So she would swim against the mother there, who had a 17-year-old daughter, or a 15-year-old daughter, and Carol was 12. So, Carol swam first, and of course she fell way behind because they were too big or too strong, and then my wife would jump in, and she closed the gap, but you couldn't make up that kind of distance. She always came in like second or third, but it was always very difficult. It was fun. It was fun.
Well, when did you start going to Putnam Lake? In the early 60s, right?
Oh yeah. I went in the early 60s. It was one of the first time we were going together a little bit. I went up there to visit, spend a Sunday with them. And one interesting experience we had was that my wife loved to fish. She had all the paraphernalia for swimming. She had the license. She was a swimmer. So I went up that one Sunday, and so she got somebody to. She borrowed a rowboat. We went out on the lake, and I had no license. So she told me she can't give me the gear, because if the state troopers saw us and they were watching, I would get a big fine, big ticket fine. So what did I do? She tied a rope around my finger, not a rope, a line. And on the bottom of the line, she put a hook and a sinker, it's called. And then I would put my hand on the side of the boat and just stand there with my hand on the boat, on the side of the boat like this. And she would throw out her line, and she would swim, fish. And next thing I know is I feel this pull, and I pull up my arm quickly, and I pull up a fish. And I do it again. She put a worm on it for me, and I put my hand on the side, just let it down, like I'm not doing anything, just sitting there. And all of a sudden I feel another pull, and I pull up the line, another fish. I was pulling fish one after the other. She couldn't get her fish. She was so upset. She had all this line, fancy hook, and all nothing. And I'm going like this. I'm pulling up fish like crazy. So that was one of our stories, fish stories. So we had a lot of fun, you know. So that's one. Then we had the Jewish Center. We used to, well, the kids were not involved with it that way because, you know, we used to have what do you call that night where they have the dancing with the guy.
Square dance.
Square dancing. We made some. I became, at one point, I became the president of the Jewish Center.
So tell a little bit of history about the Jewish Center as far as you know it.
The Jewish Center was born.
This is the Putnam Lake Jewish Center.
The Putnam Jewish Center was born in 1947, 48. It used to be a Republican club, and they sold it to these Jews who were going up from the Bronx or Brooklyn for a summer place, a summer resort. There's a lake, and they wanted to build some money there. These guys, some were professionals, so they wanted to build a synagogue, and they did. There was a big Catholic church a few blocks up from there. There was a small little Protestant church, and so we had about 80 members, Jews. So they built the Putnam Lake Jewish Center. It was a nice center, and I became involved with it. And we used to go there on Shabbat.
Was about how far from home?
1.7 miles. It was close to 2 miles we walked. And I would walk every Shabbos with my 3 kids. And we'd tell stories all the way down till we got to shul, and then a story all the way back till we got home. And my big story was Burr Rabbit and Burr Fox.
So tell the story of Burr Rabbit and Burr Fox.
Burr Rabbit and Burr Fox went like this. Burr Fox was always outsmarted by Burr Rabbit. Always Burr Rabbit was always got him, and Burr Fox was very, very upset. So Burr Fox decided that he's going to get even with Burr Rabbit. So how could he get even with Burr Rabbit? He decided on a plan. And what was his plan? He was going to build a tar baby. So he made a baby out of tar. And he took this tar baby and laid it in the middle of the street, of the road. And then the Burr Fox hid in the bushes. And sure enough, out of nowhere came prancing by Burr Rabbit. And he's whistling along and he's coming along, and all of a sudden he spots the tar baby. And he stops and he comes around and he starts walking around the tar baby. And finally gets to the tar baby. And what did Burr Fox do all this time? He lay low. So then what happened was, he went and he pushed the tar baby with his back paw. And the tar baby got stuck on his back paw. He tried to shake it off and he can't. And Burr Fox is chuckling in the bushes, and he just lay low. And now Burr Rabbit is getting very upset, so he puts his hand on and starts to pull off the tar baby, and now his hand got stuck with his foot on the tar baby. And what does Burr Fox do? He lay low. He's chuckling and laying low. And now then he takes his back paw and he does it. And finally again got stuck. Now he's got 3 foot stuck on tar baby. And he gets it with the other hand, the other paw, and pulls it in again. The was stuck and he's laying on the ground. He's laying on the ground. And at that point, who comes out of the bushes? Burr Fox. And Burr Fox starts to laugh. Burr Rabbit, I finally got you. And so he says, you know what I'm going to do with you? He says, I'm going to take you to the top of the hill. And I'm going to throw you down the mountain. And the Burr Rabbit says to him, Star Baby, please, Star Baby, take me to the top of the mountain and throw me off. But don't throw me into the briar's patch. What are the briar's patch? These are thorns, little patches with thorns on them. So he says, all right, I'm not going to do that. He says, I'm going to take a rope, I'm going to hang you on top of that tree. I'm going to hang you right up there. And he says, Burr Fox, please hang me on top of the tree. Please hang me, but don't throw me into the briar's patch, please. So Burr Fox thinking, he says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take you down to the lake, and I'm going to drown you in the water. He says, oh, please drown me, but don't throw me into the briar's patch. And with that, Burr Fox grabs Burr Rabbit, and he takes him and he throws him into the briar patch. And then he's laughing to himself, Burr Fox, and he finally got even. He finally got rid of Burr Rabbit. And he's so happy, and all of a sudden he hears whistling, and he looks up, and there's he's walking up on top of the hill. There's Burr Fox, Burr Rabbit walking by, and he's singing, born and bred in the briar patch. Born and bred in the briar patch. That was his habitat. So that was the story. And this took an hour, a mile and 7/10 to tell the story. And but the kids all got it at the end. And I would say to all the kids, I says, what did Burr Fox do? And they would say, lay, Burr Fox, lay low.
I remember.
So that was our big walk on the Shabbat story. And I even told it to my grandchildren, when on occasion. But we had fun. We did all kinds of stuff.
What was it like being like the only Orthodox Jews in the entire Putnam Lake?
Well, there was another couple there, the Cormans.
But they were never really there.
They weren't there?
No.
In the summertime.
Very infrequently. Or maybe as I got older, they weren't there as much.
That must be somebody.
But what was it like? Walking to shul? Did anybody ever bother you?
No, nobody bothered us. There was a lady just along the beach. The first I could see this house now. She would come out on Shabbos, and she would say to me, "It's so nice to see you taking the children to the synagogue." So we met these different people. Who called?